Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm the founder of MP, a platform where visionary women come to gain live access to global leaders, learn about the macroeconomic landscape, and stay ahead of the curve. In today's podcast, I speak with Daniel Sharaiha, Chief HR Officer at the Bank Etihad in Jordan. Daniel and I had much to talk about given my Middle Eastern background and how familiar I am with the culture of the region. I really enjoyed this conversation as I learned about what Daniel and his peers are doing to increase gender equity in the Arab world and in Jordan in particular. So Daniel, we met at the panel for a financial alliance for women, and you are in Bank Etihad in Jordan. So do you want to start by telling me a little bit about what you do and why you ended up being on that particular panel about women and financial alliance for women?
I started at Bank Etihad almost 10 years ago. I was 10 years younger than now. And I work as the chief HR officer at the bank. When we started working, I remember we were 350 employees. Now we're 1,250 employees. It was a major growth and shift in my journey in the bank. Above all, I am a father and a husband. I'm a father for two daughters, Farah and Selma. We come in Jordan. The women participation in the workplace is extremely low. It is said that it's one of the lowest two countries in the world, where with less than 14% of the workforce are comprised of women, and the rest are men. So it's a big challenge, especially in a country that education for women is very high. So it is not the problem is not with the talent or with the people. It's everything else. It's not the women. It's everything else around that. And and years ago, I've met with somebody who talked about diversification in the workplace in gender part, and I thought, wow, that is so important, at least for my daughter's sake, that in the future they might have an equal opportunity, nothing more or less than having an equal opportunity in the workplace. So Bank Etihad has a great value for women and gender equity, and since then we went through this journey, and it has been a very beautiful and interesting one. It's it makes sense, not because it is only the right thing to do. It makes sense to have more equality because it's a great business case. So it goes both ways.
Amazing. Okay, so let's unpack this whole issue of women being educated but not going into the workforce, because that's super important, interesting. It's definitely something we should focus on a little bit more. So before we get there, let me tell you that I don't know if you are aware, I'm from Iran originally. So I came to the UK in 2005, came here as a student, paid for my own education, and it's been a very interesting, tough, but a very, very fulfilling journey. And I came here because I felt like the things that I wanted to do, the ambitions that I had, there was no way I could have done them in Iran. Iran is a very restricted country when it comes to country when it comes to women, and it's, I would say, very oppressive even, and yes, we also have a high level of women going into education, but then you can't live the way that you want to live. You don't have freedom, to explore things. When I was in Iran, that was like 15 years ago, 16 years ago, when I was in Iran, you still had to, I don't know if it's the same still, but at that time, you still had to have the permission of your father, uncle, or brother, some male or husband, to stay in a hotel if you were going for work or anything like that. I was a tour guide, and it was very, very hard. Like it was like I had to go to the police station in a city to show them the letter from my father that said why I was staying in this hotel, because I was a tour guide, right? So that's the level of kind of restriction that you are talking about. You still need permission from a man for almost every aspect of your life. So it's a very deeply ingrained cultural issue. It's something that education alone can't resolve. It doesn't matter if you are a PhD in astrophysics, you still need the permission of your father, uncle, husband, or even your brother. And in some cases, even your brother that is younger than you has
Yeah.
more, ability to give you permission to do things, right? So it's pretty crazy. It's just like living in, I don't know, the 1400s, in Europe. So what's it like in Jordan?
Yeah, it's a different case. What the struggle is we have a high unemployment rate. So it's currently post COVID-19, it's more than 25%.
Mm.
And transportation, they did a study a while ago, and two items came as very important why we have the slowest rate of participation for women. One was transportation. Okay,
Mm.
so if you need to go to work, this will cost you a lot. Transportation might not be very comfortable for a woman to go in public transportation. If you want a private one, it will cost you a lot. So your salary wouldn't be worth it to do that. And the second thing was what to do with your kids. If you're married and have kids, who will take care of them? While we have a strong family oriented society where most people would leave their kids with their parents, grandparents, and so on, um, you still need a place for a daycare center or something to accommodate that, and that's not very common or available, and if it is available, it's not affordable.
Mm.
So that's these two reasons that they forbid women. They really block women into going to the workplace, and it is sad because you see these amazing, talented, strong women that they can achieve anything. If you can take care of your kids and your house and study or work, you can do anything, right? And this is sad to see. It's blocking for them. And if and when you provide equal opportunities for people, you see wonders. In our part of the world and maybe everywhere else, women are not participating in the tech world, right? You have fewer startups led by women than men, for example. And in the story here is when you provide equal opportunities for men and women, they take equal chances, especially in tech. So we went from less than 25% in the bank women part of the workforce to currently we're more than 48%. And with the boom of the number of employees and all of that, it has been amazing. The second part is from a business case point of view. It multiplied a number of women as customers. So when women would find a woman serving them, they were more comfortable to come to the bank as well. And when you
Nice.
have this woman product segmentation, also it gave a beautiful business case. So it's something that is sustainable. We can't go back, right? Where we are right now, I think it's impossible to go back because it makes sense both business and non-business perspective.
Amazing. So how many women work in Bank of Etihad right now?
We're talking about more than 550 or 600 even from the whole workforce.
And do they generally speak English?
Arabic is the dominant language in Jordan, but a lot of people can speak English, yes.
Because I am thinking about the opportunity for women in the post-COVID world to embrace technology, in a way that the remote working aspect, right? Which means that they don't have to travel.
Yes.
And that there's a real big opportunity for that, because I can understand, like even in the UK, I don't like to go out in the dark, like on my own, when I'm not in a taxi or something. I wouldn't like to walk in the streets, especially if it's not in a area which is really, a lot of shops or anything like that. So definitely around my home area, which is a regenerated, kind of slightly outside, I wouldn't want to go out. So being able to work from home has been a
Oh.
real upside. So do you see women actually seeing this as an opportunity and stepping up to take those opportunities?
Again, Somi, the problem is not with women looking at it in that aspect. The problem is with everything else. The problem is with companies understanding that COVID, with all the bad things that happened, gave us some hope that teleworking and flexibility at the workplace can achieve results and can do wonders. I'm afraid that while we're going a bit out of the COVID crisis, we're forgetting and letting go of the changes that happen in the flexibility. So
Mm.
if we can gain that, if we can do something about it, and if the companies around the country understand that you can achieve better results, more results, or at least the same results with with more flexibility and less paying and less time wasted. Why would I spend 2 hours if I'm a male or a female to look at a screen? Well, I can do that back home. Why do I
Yeah.
need to spend all the traffic and the stress and all of that? So this is one aspect that I hope we are getting. I'm a bit doubtful that people are understanding that they want to keep this flexibility. I'm hopeful but doubtful that this will happen. I hope that it would. Some
Mhm.
organizations took that lead, but not all of them.
Yeah, I think that inevitably that will happen, because um, the way I see it, technology is a one-way street. It's never going to go back. We are never going to go back. We are going to increasingly live in a digital world. Um, Even when you think about the way that we define luxury, even that has changed. Now the way that people can display wealth, the way that they do that on social media, the younger generation, it's through displaying the NFTs that they're buying, that type of thing. So I feel like we maybe in some areas of the world, we may be 5, 10, 20 years behind, but it's an inevitable change. And anybody, any country, any company, and any individual that doesn't keep up with that trend. The thing is, it's not even a trend. I don't even want to call it a trend, a shift, right? Um, Anybody who doesn't keep up with that is going to be left behind, and they're not going to be able to have a long-term future. We're kind of like approaching this point of, I don't know if you believe in, approaching this point of singularity, for people who have that kind of singularity point of view. And I definitely think that is happening. It's increasingly, we are getting to that point of singularity, which is like, the point beyond which all the paradigms will break down, and we do not know what will happen. And people who stay in the forefront of technology will at least be able to actively participate in whatever is happening, rather than being an passive observer and potentially being affected by it in ways that they can't do anything about. So I can't really see there being a two-way about it. I think it's definitely a one-way street. So I understand what you're saying about the companies need to do these things, and the women themselves, there's not much they can do. But I don't know if I agree with that, because look, right now I'm building a tech startup, and we are hiring people from everywhere. I have 2 people who work in Bangladesh. We have 4 or 5 people who work in India. We've got staff members in in Canada, Vancouver, in San Francisco, in New York, and in Portugal, in Dominican Republic, and in London. So we are hiring people from everywhere. It really doesn't matter to us. Like I would happily hire people from Jordan, as long as they have the skills that I'm looking for, right? So the way I see it, women can reskill and upskill themselves. And I guess it's a question of how do we bring this to their attention to make it so that they realize, I always say, having come from Iran, right is not something that they give you, it's something you take, because if you wait, nobody is going to give you right and opportunities, so you can't wait for it. So, I mean, I guess there's definitely a big role for organizations like yourselves. There's definitely a big role, but I also really want to see women themselves step up. So, as a father of two daughters, how do you communicate this to your daughters, or do you talk about these things?
It's interesting. After the session we have done, I went back home and I talked to both daughters and asked them, is there a job that women cannot do? Do you believe there is something you cannot do just because you're a girl, not a boy? And I was waiting for a reaction, and they both laughed so hard at the question. They thought it's funny, and I loved it. I thought definitely then we're doing something right, right? Even in a society that values gender the way we do, I think we're doing something right to raise up and believing that there is nothing that is impossible for them because of their gender. And
Yeah.
I do the communication all the time with them. Um, uh, it's so funny that even the literature at school, what do they teach you? My dad is working, my mom is cooking. The
Mhm.
stereotyping. This is what they teach kids at the elementary school. And while a man can be a doctor, a woman can only be a nurse.
Nurse, yes.
So these examples of how you approach work, I think it is there in the society, but I think dads and the moms, but dads specifically in our country should do so much more to bring the glory for women working again. Um, it wasn't like that all the time. Like years ago, women were more equal, in my opinion, to men
You
than
think so?
yeah. But talking about hundreds of years ago, maybe, because where I come from in the country, in Jordan, in the south, women had a say as strong as men in our family, in our tribe at least. And you see this diminishing slowly in some parts of the world. And well, when women work, of course, there's the power shifts in the household. So maybe that's one of the reasons that men might not accept that their wife or daughter or whatever go to work, because there's a power shift. She doesn't expect to get money from me as the head of the house anymore. She can
Mhm.
earn a living. And maybe I'm not sure, maybe that's part of the resistance in general.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's true. So we did a research to find out why women were not reaching the, top tiers of business and technology. Through our research, we found out that there were 6 reasons why women were being left behind, and those were a shortfall in 6 areas: confidence, tech skills, financial literacy, business and entrepreneurship skills, and women's health issues, and family and relationship support. So we talked about the last one, family and relationship support, and this whole power dynamic that you explained and you talked about. So in a country like Jordan, obviously it's an Arabic country. I think that probably that aspect has got one of the most impacts, and then that has a knock-on effect on confidence, right? Because if you are always told, when I was growing up, I remember my parents said that your laughter should not be heard as a woman, that like, nobody should hear you even laugh. So there is this
This is
incredible.
very familiar to me as well, Somi. That it's the same, I think.
But what do you think happened in your mind? Let me ask you a very personal question. Please feel free not to answer it. Does your wife work?
Of course, yes,
Okay.
yes, it does.
All right. That's interesting because you
She's
didn't
a very,
mention that, right?
yeah. She's a very successful woman, and I'm very proud of her and her abilities. I can tell you easily, I am the man who I am today because of her. It's so interesting that in my mind, definition of being a man is how you treat women.
Mhm.
This is what makes you a man. If you oppress, if you look down at women, then the truth is you're looking down at yourself as a man. So she taught me a lot of skills. When we first got married, I used to write her love letters, and she used to correct them and get them back to me. Corrected all the spelling mistakes and the grammar mistakes. So she spoke better English than I did, and she helped me develop my language skills. She helped me look at life in different manner. So I'm proud of her, and I think even marrying the right person that will make you grow both ways. I think it's very important. That was my experience.
That's amazing to hear. I'm very happy to hear that because sometimes when I speak to people who have daughters, they say like, I'm doing this for my daughters, but they don't necessarily talk about their wives. And I'm like, I want to know what your wife is doing, because that really, that does matter. So that's really good to hear. I'm so glad to hear that. So let's talk a little bit about your Bank Al Etihad. How big is it in Jordan in comparison to other banks?
It's currently, when I first started working, we were number 7 in the banking sector. Currently, we're number 3 in many KPIs.
Okay.
So um, I'm not sure if I can say this, but our success is because of all the values that we have within the organization. The reason for success is people, of
Mhm.
course. Technology is awesome at our bank, and it's very important, but people make technology. So it's all about the people. And I think one of the key success of our story in the country is because we hired more women than everybody else.
Okay.
This is my honest testimony, um, being part of the event and the growth and all of that.
That's amazing to hear. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So, where do you see the future going for Bank of Etihad, but also for other banks, for other organizations in Jordan in general? Do you see it going in the right direction? Do you see things getting better for women?
So let me explain more my previous point. When you hire more women, what does that tell about you as an organization? That you hold equity and you're fair, you have no biases, and it comes as a package. So if you have that values, it will mean you will hire the right people for your organization without caring what's their religion, where they come from, what's their gender, and you're more receptive, right, for the talent. And by doing that, by holding these values, you hire better people, which means better results.
Yeah.
I think the financial institutions in the world and in Jordan, it's a very, very strong institution. The regulation are excellent and they're very protective of financial sector in the country. But I believe technology will be changing the game. I think it will be the game of either you exist or not.
Yeah,
In the
that was
future.
my point about the singularity.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's not, as you mentioned, it's a one-way street.
one-way street. Yes.
And technology is so important, and you can't leave it to for men to fix it. You have to
That's
have
it.
both genders. So it's because the users are both genders, right? So you have to do the user experience, user design, having in mind that people are different. And if you only hire one type of thinking in in designing that technology, I think it will fail. If you don't have diversity through the inception of technology and adaptation of technology, I think it won't be as successful as including everybody.
Exactly, because machine learning and artificial intelligence needs a lot of data, and it needs diverse data, right? And if all of the data is coming from a specific source, it's not going to be as powerful as it could be for all of humanity. So I think that's a really good point to, that's a good place to kind of bring our conversation to an end. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm so glad to see that this happening in the Middle East, because I come from that background. So it means a lot to me to see that. I hope that we see it in more Arabic countries, in more, countries that are kind of well known for traditionally being pretty restrictive towards women. So this is a very positive change. And I was really surprised and pleasantly surprised to see you on that panel and to hear the work that you're doing. So I really appreciate it. And it's pretty amazing. So thank you for being
on. It was a pleasure for me, Somi, as well. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the country. We have great people around. And if given the right opportunity and seeking it, you will see wonders.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Danny and Sharaiha. We have a long way to go before we can achieve gender equity around the world, and this is at the heart of what FemPeak stands for. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider subscribing on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. Our team works extremely hard to bring these interviews to you, and your support will help more people discover the content. Finally, if you're not yet a member of FemPeak, head over to fempeak.ai, register, and join a community that actively supports women's professional growth.